So under this light of the big full moon in the sky, I invite you just to close your eyes and settle in. And almost as if you can just imagine that the roof of your home, wherever you are, is just gone. And this beautiful moonlight is just illuminating the space where you are. And so just imagine what your life is like as just light pours into it. Light reveals, it illuminates, it provides comfort and ease. And so what I'd like us to do is just see our meditation practice as the same way, as this place that illuminates, that reveals, that brings comfort and ease. And so as we settle in and you start to just notice your breath, just really give yourself just these moments to be whatever you need them to be. Whatever you've brought with you to these moments, to this space where you are, just embrace it all. And let this practice truly be for you. And then maybe your breath starts to slow just a bit. Just a little more intentional as you breathe in. And being really gentle as you breathe out. And just settle in a bit more. And we are at this point in this Yoga Sutra journey through this chapter about our practice where we get to Sutra number 28. And I love this one because it is so all-encompassing, because we've sat with these afflictions, these poisons, these barriers to our peace, to our easing of the fluctuations of our mind. And now Patanjali, this amazing author, this wise sage, has just brought us verse 28 and said, now that you understand that it's possible to ease the turbulence in your mind, now that you understand that this sense of freedom and liberation is available to you, I want to give you these 8 tangible tools of how you can do it. I call them the 8 limbs of yoga, he says. These 8 just tangible, realistic, you can almost hold them in your hand, tools to maintain a life of balance, of centering, of ease. He cautions us not to think that all the suffering will end and all the distractions will quiet. But he says, and I love this translation, these 8 limbs will actually begin to replace the mark that these distractions have had on your life. And so I just encourage you for just these next few breaths, just kind of reflect on life prior to you finding yoga. And maybe that's the physical practice, maybe it's just the meditation practice, maybe it's a combination, but do you remember what it was like before you had a place to show up, a place to find the present moment? I would guess that most of you are like I was, just trying to figure it out. One moment, one experience at a time, just using the best knowledge and information we've got to just try to figure it out as we go. But these 8 limbs that he gives us in verse 28, they are giving us this assurance that we don't have to just figure it out. These tools account for all the parts. And I love this verb of replace when he says, as you begin to work with these 8 limbs of yoga, you will begin to replace the impact that all these disturbances, all these fluctuations, all these distractions have had on your life. And to me, that is a really great assurance that I want to understand more. And hopefully you'll see it the same way. And so we're going to dive into these 8 limbs in the coming days. But for right now, let's just sit with this idea of what do they already look like in your life? The first limb is yamas, how you interact with the world. And so this limb of the yamas Is it something that creates more disturbance and distraction for you? Or is it something that brings you back to your center? How you're interacting with the world. And I know that outwardly we look and we see the world, and if it could just be a little calmer, if it could just be a little kinder, we wouldn't struggle so much. But as we dig into what these yamas are, we'll realize that how we interact with the world is an expression of our spirit, and that's what the yamas are. And then the second one, he tells us, turn your attention inward. These niyamas, how do you treat yourself? So just think to yourself, is the way that you treat yourself something that causes ease? Or does it cause more disturbances? He says, how you treat yourself must reflect the light that is within you. This divine light, this presence, the universe that exists within you. How do you treat it? And then that third limb, the limb with which we are almost all the most familiar, the limb of asana. And he says, I give you this limb so that as you move your body with intention, you are prepared to sit in meditation. You're not prepared to stand on your head or stand on one leg for a long time. You are preparing your body to sit in meditation. So just think for a second. How have I interacted with movement to this point? Has it been something to give me ease and peace? Or something that was a distraction, a disturbance? And then this fourth limb, the breath limb, pranayama. He gives us this whole limb about breath control, breath restraint. And he reminds us to stop waiting until we are so dysregulated that the breath is all we have left. He says, let's focus on the breath first. So what does your breath practice look like? Do you rely on the breath as you move through the world? Or do you find it when there's not any other things to pull from? And then the fifth limb that he gives us, pratyahara. And again, we're going to dive into all these and explore them at a deeper level. But pratyahara, he says, are your senses leading you astray? Or are you in charge of what the senses respond to? Are they like wild horses causing more and more disturbances? Or do you have a good handle on those reins and you decide how you react? And these first 5 limbs that he gives us, these 8, he says, these are the ones you've got to really pay attention to. You got to practice these. They've got to be part of your everyday life. And then he tells us that he's going to go on in the next coming verses, and he's going to tell us the how. But he says, if you will do these, you will replace the distractions caused by all the other things and the impact that they've had on your life. But you've got to practice. And then the last 3 limbs, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Intense focus and concentration. Present moment awareness through meditation. And ultimate bliss. And again, we'll sit with these as we move forward, but he says, as you practice those first 5, these other ones will give you what you need to let the impact of all those distractions be replaced. To me, he is one of the greatest teachers we've ever had, because he doesn't just tell us the places where we struggle. He doesn't just tell us the things to be aware of and be warned about. He says, I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to tell you the how. And the best part is I'm going to tell you the how in a way that you can actually live these out every single day. You don't have to go to the side of the mountain and Retreat from the world. I want you to live in the world with these tools as the first line of defense for whatever you encounter in your day. And so I'd ask you, what does your sadhana look like? What does your practice look like? So many tools, so many options. Do you rely on them on purpose, proactively? Do you rely on them in times of need? Or have some of them just become just a habit and they've lost the magic of what they can really do in your life? And so again, we're going to explore them. We're going to dive in and dig in and understand them intimately in our lives. But today, let's just sit with the assurance that they exist. They were offered to us nearly 3,000 years ago, and they are just as relevant today. And so as we just sit here together, you just continue to breathe. I'm just going to say these Sanskrit words and just let them just kind of start to sit in your spirit, sit in the fiber of your being, until eventually they truly become your own. Maybe it's a reminder for some of you. Maybe it's brand new knowledge and understanding. But eventually, the hope is that we'll make them our own. Every day, in every situation. So just continue to breathe in and out, knowing that these 8 limbs will replace all the impacts of all the distractions and all the disturbances that you've had in your life up to this point. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. And let's just pause. Just let the vibration of the words, of the sounds just sit. Just kind of hold space in the air around us. Just keep this idea open of, what does my sadhana, my practice look like? What do I do proactively as part of just my daily living? What do I pull from when I am desperate? I'm in need of something. And what if I just ritualized and made into a habit and I've forgotten the true impact that it can have in my life? What does your practice look like? And then Patanjali goes on to say at the end of this verse, he says, as you practice, as these 8 limbs become a part of you, you will have wisdom and you will have discernment. Just listen to that again. as you practice and these 8 limbs becomes just a part of who you are and how you move through the world, you will have wisdom and you will have discernment. Decisions that have seemed so hard or so cloudy or so challenging will become clearer. The connection between your mind and your thoughts, with your heart and your soul, the connection will be stronger. Wisdom and discernment. I don't know about you, but the assurance of wisdom and discernment really makes me want to understand these 8 limbs to a depth that they just become my own practice every day in all situations. So that I choose well the first time, that my decision-making practice is clear and reflective of my heart. And so that as I move through the world, I create ripple effects of peace instead of ripple effects of suffering. What does your practice look like? We'll explore it a little more together. But I encourage each of us, keep exploring it on your own. Wisdom and discernment. It's what we've been seeking, many of us, for so long, so very long. And Patanjali tells us, I'm going to share with you how to find it. So let's just take a slow, deep breath in, just filling ourselves up with that assurance that these distractions, this impact of them is going to be replaced. And as we breathe out, resting in the promise, wisdom, discernment. Namaste.